G'day guys, welcome to Beyond the Tape, a podcast where we talk to people doing rad things in the mountain bike industry. Usually we're talking to mainly Australians, but we will be kind of expanding our horizons over the next 12 months or so. This episode is with Chris Hinds. He is a young ripper from Australia, and he is, being Dan Booker's mechanic on the Nukeproof team for the last kind of season in a bit of a spontaneous move. So it's cool to sit down and have a chat with him about it. Before we jump onto that though, let's thank our sponsors. We've got Trek Bikes. Man, I'm absolutely loving my Fuel EX. The adjustability is crazy. Just trying out the more progressive setting at the moment. Trying to make the bike a little bit more playful, a little bit more support there, even with the air shock. And yeah, absolutely frothing that thing. Even did some shuttles on it, which is wild on the little 140, 150 mil bike. Of course, when I'm doing shuttles, it's while I'm wearing Frank mountain bike apparel. Absolutely loving their lighter weight AirTech jerseys during these warmer days. Man, it hit 41 the other day. It was wild, but still was able to ride and keep cool. Shred Bike Care, its Eco Wash is keeping the dust off my bike. It's a spray on, wipe off type thing, keeps it polished. Thanks to their Ceramtech, Ceratech coating as well from their Ceratech product. It just keeps everything super easy to clean. Fist handwear have been keeping my hands protected, and yeah, the Breezer gloves are keeping my hands cool as well while I'm able to keep grip. Man, I'm excited to get down to Tassie and catch up with the crew from Tailored Trails and see what's been happening down in Tassie. They'll be able to take me around, give me some coaching, show us everything to do so I can just rock up and ride. Lead Out Sports, best importer for all of the tools you could ever need. Dirt Surf Australia have been keeping the dust out of my eyes and off my shock seals. Capped out caps have been making my bike look way better than I will ever ride it. And of course, Oakley, Australia, keep my eyes protected. So stoked on all those sponsors for this year, and hopefully we can keep the partnerships going throughout 24. Anyway, that's enough rambling for this one. As per usual, grab a beer, grab a water, grab a wine, and enjoy the podcast. Actually, grab whatever makes you happy as well. Brad, let's start again.
Yeah. Good.
Chris, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
We got over those technical issues, so it's all good now.
Yeah, it's good to go, hopefully. Fingers crossed.
Just want to give us another brief interview of who you are and what you kind of do?
Yeah. I'm Chris. I've been traveling around World Cups for past few months, working with the Nukeproof team, a bit with the Enduro guys, and then also a bit with the downhill guys. Just working as a mechanic, fixing bikes and having a whole lot of fun.
How did you kind of get into bikes and get into racing and riding? Because you're pretty damn handy on a bike.
Thanks. I got into riding bikes when I was like 10 or 11 or 12. My dad kind of started doing it, and I was like, oh yeah, that seems pretty cool, and started doing it as well. And then found a whole bunch of mates through it, or brought a few mates in as well. And yeah, it just went from there. Had a whole lot of fun doing it. So got into racing, did a bit of cross country at the start, then got into a bit of downhill as well. And eventually when enduro sort of started becoming a thing, did that as well. And I ended up actually racing a few EWSs a few years ago. And yeah, just do a whole bunch of, well, a couple little club rounds, national rounds every now and then, and just ride a whole lot for fun really nowadays.
What kind of attracted you to mountain biking? What is it that you love about it?
I just really like sort of getting out in the bush. It's just nice to get away from the crazy side of life and get out there, and then combining that with getting yourself a bit, throwing yourself down deep rock garden, going as fast as you can and going off jumps. It's always fun. And then you just make heaps of mates out there, and yeah, just good fun hanging out with people, going as fast as you can or just having fun.
It seems like that's like the most common answer. Eh? Everyone just loves getting out on the bike with their mates and getting away from it all.
Yeah, yeah, pretty good for that.
Were you pretty quick to start off with, or like how was your progression in racing?
Uh, I've always been like super competitive, so I feel like I was pretty quick. I think I don't know if I got a head start, but like by the time I was competing, I'd already like a few years of just riding for fun. Yeah, I feel like I was always doing pretty well. I guess it must be some sort of natural talent there, maybe.
I'm glad one of us has it.
Yeah. I don't know. I'll call it that.
Um, what was your kind of goals? Were you just did you ever have goals to become a pro racer or something like that, or were you always just doing it for the love?
Yeah. Oh, I never really had any like big goals. I don't like it was always would have been cool. Like once you get into racing, it's always like, oh, what's the next biggest race you can sort of get into, go to. Um, yeah, I guess I did sort of have the goal of getting into World Cup or like the Enduro World Series was what did it for me. And I kind of got there, did that, had some fun, and yeah, I guess it still been like really competitive whenever I do race, but I guess now I've gotten to the point where as a mechanic I can kind of get me further than you know as far as I can get with just riding the bike. Like if I can get myself further as a mechanic,
Mm,
opposed to as a rider.
that's a fair point. Do you?
I quite like.
Sorry.
I was going to say I quite like it now. It kind of takes a bit of the pressure off, and I used to like, it didn't really ever feel like training, but I felt like I sort of always was sort of trying to push myself a bit more before. Whereas now I'm like, oh, I just like ride for fun, still race every now and then, but I don't feel like I'm quite as serious now, which is nice.
Do you think your riding got better from taking it less serious? Did you notice a change or anything?
Uh, I don't think any. I don't think I got any better because of that. I don't know. Some days I still feel like I'm not doing great, but then some days I'm like, oh yeah, like I'm doing pretty well, having heaps of fun and going all right. So, but I feel like that's just general. I'm on the bike, just riding.
when
Yeah.
how did you learn or know when you could throw some of the dirtiest whips in Australia? That's all I want to get to be honest. Like your whips are so sick.
Thanks. That's awesome to hear. Actually, I'm stoked about that. I don't know. I think it was just always. It was probably started from when I was like young, just a kid messing around on a downhill bike on like some sketchy jumps that like I don't know, some of us kids or like a few other people had just randomly built out in the bush, and you just like you see everyone like on all the videos, you're like, oh, they're doing like sick whips. I'm going to try that. I definitely like killed a few wheels in the process, but yeah, just like trying from a very young age, I guess. What what got me started? I have it started with that, and then I just straight out of high school, I went and did my gap year over in Whistler, and when you've got that your doorstep riding A line or dirt merchant or whatever, pretty much every day, you get pretty good at doing silly things on jumps. So that definitely accelerated the filthy whips that we're talking about.
How long were you in Canada for?
Just one season, one summer. So it was like 6 months.
Yeah.
Ended up being.
And you were riding and you were just throwing whips and just playing around for your entire time over
Oh, there was a bit of work, but didn't really feel like it
there?
working as a mechanic. And then I was working as a bike instructor as well over there. That was pretty fun most of the time.
Just teaching others how to whip?
No, I got more of the beginner stuff, really.
Okay.
It was my first year working as an instructor. So teaching people how to ride around a berm was probably the biggest thing I did. Well, the most common thing I was doing.
I remember,
yeah.
While we're on the topic of whips and stuff, and I'm jumping around a bit, but I remember at Enduro Jam last year, you threw down this steezy whip and just ripped your tire off first run. Like,
yeah, I remember that. That whole session, that whip off was so sick. Yeah, I think it was the first one I did. I literally got up there, got so excited, and just like pulled so hard off the lip. Like, it was a fully whip, but I just landed like pretty much completely at the bottom of the landing, and yeah, my tire decided to exit the chat.
Did you get high sided as well in the same thing, or was it all in the one whip?
Yeah, so that was not in the one whip. So I blew my tire off the first jump just as we were getting started. Literally, like, got on a buggy, got back down to the workshop at Medina, popped the tire on, blew it back up with the compressor, and then got back up there, did like the whole jam, and it was on one of my last, well, it was my last whip towards the end of the session. It felt so sick, and there's like some sick photos. Definitely keep looking back at, I must say. But I just like, yeah, just, it was like, it felt like it was like super like moto sort of style whip where I just leant really hard into it and ended up actually getting my saddle sort of caught around my thigh, and it just like got stuck there, and I just couldn't bring it back, and yeah, just threw down this sick, like really dipped whip, but then didn't bring it back, landed completely sideways, and yeah, ended up on the ground and bike flipped. Yeah, that's pretty funny.
You somehow got out of that so easy too. When I saw you going, I'm like, he's not coming back from this. Like, he's done.
Yeah, I literally hit the ground and bounced back up, and I somehow ended up back on my feet, and everyone was like just cheering, and I was so stoked. It was sick.
What's it like throwing down in front of a crowd like that? Because it was pretty stacked in the crowd. Yeah,
it's pretty scary to start. Like when you just first starting off, you're like when the session's first starting off, you're like, oh, I don't want to mess up in front of like a big crowd. And you're like, oh, yeah, you get pretty nervous at the start, but then you're like, throw down a couple, and you're like, yeah, this is sick, and you just get so hyped, and then yeah, you get pretty excited, sometimes a bit too excited, and yeah, just pushes you to go bigger and bigger. It's what makes it so good.
And when did you get around the no-hander aero tuck phase? Like, when did you start training for that?
Oh, it was.
It's the most ridiculous photo I saw all year. It's that.
Yeah, it's all from like I don't know why. It was. I think it was probably like a year and a half or 2 years ago. I just like I was getting quick on a bike, and then I was like wanting to, start doing some cool stuff, and start taking hands off, or like I ended up doing. I've done like got all right at doing like backflips and stuff, like just doing airbag, and then I like progressed to dirt on like my dirt jumper, and I've got like a little Status 140, like little bike that I turned into a slope style bike, and done a few backflips on that as well. So yeah, I kind of started moving from like the racing sort of scene to doing a bit more like tricks and free ride stuff. So yeah, started doing some suies as well.
And then you just decided to do a sui aero tuck at Mega Avalanche.
Yeah, I was like, oh yeah, we'll just just for the photo, just like take your hands off. It was pretty sketchy, but it was a good photo there.
Oh, it's perfect. It was one of my favorite.
Mm.
So you did the EWS and stuff in Tassie at the start of the year, but you were also wrenching at that race, was it, at Medina? Is that when you started?
Yeah. So I'd already signed up for, it was just the what do they call it, the open race. I'd already signed up for that. And then that was like a couple months beforehand. And then I happened to be hanging out, talking with Dan, just riding. And he happened to mention that they were looking for another mechanic for the couple Tassie rounds. And I was like, oh, like, that's pretty cool. I'd love to do that. Like, where do I sign up? And he was like, oh, you sure? Like, I thought you were going to be racing. I was like, yeah, like I was going to be racing, but I'd much rather work for you, like work for a team, like an elite team would be so much cooler than, you know, just me racing the open race. And then, kind of got the gig working for Dan and the team. And then, because it's, the Enduros now have got like, there's like the practice day where everyone practices, and then they run the open race. Like everyone practices on the Friday, say, and then they run the open race on the Saturday. And the elite guys have the day off, and then they race on the Sunday. So I'd already like the big day for the mechanics is day before practice, where you give the bike a full strip down, rebuild, go through everything, and then you send them out for practice, and then hopefully they don't break too much during practice. So in Medina, it was pretty good. So the bikes were pretty much fine. I just like managed to get through, checking it all out, making sure everything was all fine that evening after practice. So I was then like, oh, I've still got that entry. I can still race. And yeah, the team was like, yeah, go for it. Like, bikes are fine. Don't need me just sitting around doing nothing on Saturday. So yeah, ended up doing the race as well as working, which was sick.
That's a huge weekend.
Yeah, I was pretty cooked by the end.
Did you know Dan already beforehand, or?
Yeah. So I've been, I was living down in Medina for the past 2 summers and Derby the summer before. So I'd been hanging out around Tassie for a while, and just had gotten to know Dan over the years. And yeah,
It's a bit of a spur of the moment like decision to wrench for the race team. Did you have a job at the time, or?
Yeah, so I was already working as a mechanic at the bike park. Yeah, so I was living down there, working down there as a mechanic. So,
and they were fine with you just going off.
Yeah, it was just a couple of. Like, I already had the days off because I thought I was going to be like practicing and racing myself. So I didn't really mind at all.
But what about when you had the invitation to go overseas? Were they pretty all right with that?
Yeah, that was fine because I was like, I only go down to Tassie for the summers, so everything had pretty much wrapped up by the time I was going away. Anyway, I normally come back to Sydney where I'm from, and I've been doing uni. I've been doing mechanical engineering. I'm like been slowly getting through it. 4 years through 5. So I could have finished off uni this year, but instead decided to take the awesome opportunity to, go around Europe, work for a team.
That wouldn't have been a hard choice, eh?
I thought about it for a couple of seconds at least. I was like, oh, uni will still be here. I'll finish that off later. no rush to get that done.
What was were you nervous for your first race for wrenching for him?
Yeah, so nervous. Like I've been working as a mechanic for like a while now. Like I think it's for 6-7 years or something. So I've got to the point where I'm pretty confident with like fixing anything on a bike really. But once you throw racing into the equation as well, all of a sudden it's not just like you got to fix it. Like you got to fix it. It might have to be like under time pressure, and like you can't fuck up. Like it's got to work. So I definitely like gets you stressed. But I knew that I had the skills and was capable of doing it. Especially when you're new to it, you just definitely feel the pressure.
Was there like a certain procedure or schedule that you had to kind of work to or get your head around on that first race? Was that?
Yeah, it's like you don't really get given like you get given a rough schedule, but it's pretty much the race day. Right, practice will be on the Friday usually. So you'll have the whole of Thursday pretty much to check everything on the bike, pull it all apart, fresh bearings throughout the frame, wheels, fresh tires. Pretty much just go through all the consumable items and make it all nice and new. We've got pretty much all day to go through that, which is nice. That you can just spend your time making everything perfect, but you still got to make sure that you do get through everything, because you can't just keep digging and go crazy and deep with some things. So you just got to manage your time a little bit there, but not too bad. And then practice day, and one you just check pressures, lip chains, and them out for the day. Then it's pretty chill. Hopefully you don't have too much to do. It's just if anything goes wrong, where they'll then be coming back and you have to be put under a bit of pressure to get it done nice and quick so that they can get back out there. And then if you're not racing the open race, you've got the whole of Saturday to then check over everything and whether you need to put new tyres on for race day or whatever, anything out. You've got pretty much a whole day again before they then go out for race day. There's a bit of a schedule, but
you see some mechanics like Ant-Man and a few others, like I think the Yeti mechanic Polar Bear does it as well, where they go out and ride with the team. Were you doing that as well?
Yeah, I went out and practiced pretty much all the races with them, just because it didn't really seem like much point me just sitting around at the pits. Like there's always a bit of prep stuff you can do for some things, but yeah, if you're on top of it, you can get all that done earlier rather than having to do it while they're out practicing. And I figured it was almost better for me to come along just in case anything did go wrong while they were out and about, because you're just there to any little issues that might pop up.
Is it a pretty tough job to go and ride some of the best trails in the world for work?
Yeah, it's pretty tough. It's like tough to get yourself out of bed in the morning. You got to go ride these sick trails. It was actually like so awesome, especially because like usually before a race, like when you're riding practice, especially in enduro where you get one run down each stage, you think so much and you're like analyzing all the bits of trail, trying to like figure out the best line and how quick you can ride sections, and you're trying to figure that out straight away. And then all of a sudden I was doing all that but not having to worry about racing. It was just like so much fun. I was just riding the trails, enjoying myself, just like popping off little whatever I could, little side hits and all that. Having a great time.
Was it kind of? It would have been good because you've got so much. You've spent all that time building up your skills and your riding as well, so you are actually able to ride all that stuff as well. Did you find that pretty beneficial?
Yeah, yeah, it was. I was probably it was actually really good having that sort of race experience, especially like having like race proper EWSs, EDRs, whatever you want to call them nowadays.
No, they're EWSs.
Having raced them
EDRs
before.
don't exist in my mind.
Yeah, yeah, everyone still calls it that pretty much. Yeah, having that experience means that like I'd still stop at all the like key sections with Dan or Keelan or all the other riders, and you'd be able to help them out, sort of analysing lines and be able to be like, oh, like you could try that, like set up here so you can get onto that line. You kind of just like giving them another person to bounce ideas off or give them suggestions and stuff.
Is that where like having, I guess like the benchmark for that kind of relationship is Aaron Peltari and Brosnan or Gwyn and John Hall, but is having that relationship with Dan and being able to trust each other very important for you guys, and that's why it's kind of worked even with your first year?
Yeah, just being like mates means that it's half just like the confidence to like be like, no, I think that line might be actually better, or like just sort of knowing how they ride. Like Dan kind of rides just like, he doesn't ever really do any crazy sort of like massive gaps or stuff like that. Like, well, just something he does some pretty crazy stuff, I must say, but he just likes to find the line that he's going to be able to look the smoothest, and like he always just looks like he's so in control, like not even going quick, but he's just that smooth and controlled that it is that quick. So kind of already knowing that does help, just being like being able to suggest different lines or that sort of thing. And just I think just getting out there and like enjoying yourself helps, because like it's a lot of stress on the riders as well. Like it's kind of like it is their actual job, so there's a bit of pressure there. So having someone that is going to help make that pressure kind of disappear, just seem like they're having fun, definitely helps, because I think everyone always rides better when they're just having fun.
I've always thought of Booker as the most exciting rider to watch, but the most boring racer, because he is so damn smooth and does nothing on the bike when he's riding. Like, I forget it's him.
Yeah. Never looks too wild, but still like somehow.
But then we're going through like
moving so quick,
like a Knack Suida freaking manual, like with like it's nothing when he's just chilling. It's crazy.
Yeah, there's a lot of bike skill there.
Obviously starting at home would have, well, in Medina and Tassie would have been a good little start for you, but what was it like going over to Europe or overseas for the first race? Were you nervous and have a bit more on your shoulders for those?
Yeah, at first, like getting over the first European races in finale, just like being in finale, for like what was technically like work, just like it didn't seem real at first. I was like, no way, I've like come to this amazing little town in Italy just to like get paid. I like to call it just play with bikes, really. That's what it feels like to me. It just didn't seem real. I was like, this is amazing. But then once like practice and race day sort of comes around, you definitely like just get the pressure. But the team is so good that everyone's just there having a whole bunch of fun. So that definitely helps.
Is it hard to remember that you are at work? and that you have a job to do?
It sort of. It never really feels like a job to me. Like, it's crazy. Like, I was like, even like now I'm back in Sydney, like working at the shop I work at. Like, I'll go to work on bikes all day, and then like I'll come home and I'll be like, oh, maybe I'll like get my own bike out in the garage and like do something with that. Like, I think it's pretty cool that what I do just does not feel like work at all.
100%. That's when you know it's like right.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Were there any
it never really felt like proper work.
I could believe it. What did Dan have any quirky little setup things that you've got to kind of remember, or were there any like things that you need to do specifically on his bike that were pretty unique? Or
nothing too crazy really. It's sort of, we'd mess around it, not too much, but suspension is always like, any rider at that sort of level is going to be pretty in tune and want to sort of get their suspension all like dialed in. So just like tiny little adjustments, or like we did work a little bit with different tunes and stuff in the auction shop. But apart from that, make the brakes feel real good and bitey. And then nothing too crazy really. He is running the little steering damper, the prototype thing from prototype steering damper that Jeremiah Buber, a bit of a name in the mountain biking industry. He's been down in Medina for the past probably year now and working on his new steering damper. Dan does run that, and that's something that you don't see on many bikes at all.
I didn't realize that was a prototype one. I thought that was an old one that had just been reused. But yeah, that's pretty rad if it's proto.
So Jeremiah is going to be bringing that out at some point. I'm not too sure. I haven't talked to him recently. How it's going.
We might need to talk to him and make sure this is okay to talk about. But yeah.
Hopefully we don't have to cut this bit.
It's all good. I'll shoot him a message. Yeah, that's pretty cool though. Like, is it cool being working on proto stuff in your first year, like, and messing around with that, or you didn't really do much to it?
You don't really do much to it. You kind of just put it on. It's like, it's adjustable, so but straightforward. You can like just make it add a bit more damping or open up the damping to it. So Dan just is very straightforward. You just twist the knob, and Dan just does that himself, depending on what sort of terrain he's going to be riding.
Have you had a chance to ride with it?
Yeah, I have had a little go on it. It's pretty cool. It really helps. It almost just makes the bike feel like the head angle is just like another degree or a little bit slacker. So like once you get up to speed, it just like feels like it just holds line. Pretty cool.
But then when you're at slow speed, it's not as responsive, right? Like it's not getting jarred as much. So the damping isn't there.
Yeah, just to some level, it does help with that as well. But you really notice it on like the fast rough stuff. You just like feel like you can loosen your grip and you don't have to hang on quite as hard.
Did you notice less arm fatigue and stuff because of it? Like less grip? Like you're not holding on as much. So
yeah, I didn't really notice. I wasn't really thinking too much about my arm fatigue, arm pump, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I wasn't doing massively long defense with it. So
yeah. That's pretty sweet though. When I saw it pop up, it's definitely going to be a big thing, I think, in the future. Is that type of stuff for sure.
yeah, I think there's still a little bit of work to be done on it. Maybe not sure where Jeremiah's at with it, but yeah.
So you what's one of the, like was there something that was getting like completely destroyed on bikes like quite a bit, or is because he's such a good rider and such a smooth rider there wasn't much getting broken on bikes?
It wasn't too much. He was pretty good. I was working with Keelan Grant as well,
Yep.
and he's a bit harder on wheels in particular. So there's a few wheels that, got pretty bad and bruised, and would go through them pretty quickly. But apart from that, just standard. Like the tires we were running were some of the new Michelin ones, and we had like a soft sort of compound, so they weren't lasting too long, but they were so grippy that it was pretty amazing. But yeah, they'd get torn to shreds, but I think that's pretty standard.
Yeah, I remember running some of the DH22s and they were so soft, but you could pretty much like bar drag on fire roads. They were so grippy. But yeah, cut through them so fast.
Yeah. It's what you want, really, when you're racing.
If you've got endless tires just sitting in the truck, then for sure.
Yeah, not quite endless, but like enough.
Yeah, they exist.
Yeah, enough that whenever you needed them, they were there.
So you were working on two races, bikes. Was that pretty hectic, or?
Yeah, wasn't too bad. It would get hectic on race day if all the different races, like the start order would just change slightly. So if Keelan and Dan were a bit closer together in the start order, then when they would come through for like when they'd come through the tech zone, sort of during the middle of the race, if they were both close together, you'd kind of be like having to chop quickly through the bikes to like just quickly check through everything and hope that there's nothing wrong that you didn't have to your time to fix. I got lucky there. Nothing really went wrong during the races. So actually, it was in Medina. Actually, Dan managed to put a pretty sizable dent and a good flat spot in his wheel. Just after talking about him being easy on equipment. Yeah, so he had like a slow leak, so I think it dropped a fair bit of pressure on the stage. It must have been between stage 4 and 5 or something that they came through the tech zone, and it was on stage 4 that he'd put a good flat spot in his wheel and lost a bit of pressure. So I'd gone to pump it up again, and once we got it up to pressure, it just blew straight off the rim. The bead just wouldn't hold at the flat spot. So I was like running around being like, you can't swap out a wheel. Like, it wasn't a tire. Like, swapping out a tire wouldn't have changed anything. And ended up just, going full, I'm sure you've seen Toby Price from like Dakar, like where he uses zip ties to like hold his tire and literally like put a tube in and probably use like 10 zip ties around where the flat spot is just to like stop the tire from being able to expand and pop off the rim there. That was like the one sort of pretty hectic thing. And that was at the first race. So
you got it all out of the way straight away.
Yeah. And then the rest of the season.
That's wild. Toby Price would have been proud.
Yeah. It was cool.
What was it like having a Pagey around the pits? Were you starstruck, or like, for those that don't know, he's like one of the founding members and one of the most influential people around. But like, what was it like having him as a manager?
It was so much fun. He was just like pretty crazy guy, just here for a good time, but at the same time, he knows how to like knuckle down, knows what to do when you need him to get stuff done. Pretty cool.
Did he wrench or anything? Or
he's just got so many.
Sorry.
That's right.
What was he? Is he wrenching and stuff as well, or is he literally just in the background making sure everything's going smoothly?
He was just in the background. So there was two mechanics. That was me and Matt, another guy. He's from Scotland, up around where the team is sort of based out of. Well, most of the guys are based out of, and where Nukeproof, near where Nukeproof is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it was me and Matt that were the two mechanics. Got two riders each, and yeah, Pagey just hanging out, getting everything organised in the background, keeping everyone fed and watered.
That's right. That's so good. What did you ever have Sam Hill walk into the pits and need anything done, or was his year in downhill?
Yeah, Sam's got his own mechanic, so I didn't ever get to play with his bike really, unfortunately. But I was definitely hanging out a fair bit with him. I was just going around to the downhill races as well, over in Europe. Out in pits there, come in, fill up. I was staying with him at accommodation. It was all pretty exciting, really.
If you were like
pretty quiet there.
What? Yeah. If you were to go back and tell yourself, like when you were 12, 13, that you'd be chilling with Sam Hill in his race pits and accommodation and stuff, would you believe it? Or like you're wrenching for a World Cup team? Like, what do you think, 12-year-old or 13-year-old?
I don't know if I'd believe it.
Yeah.
It'd be like, nah, like, surely not. Just be like, it wouldn't seem real. It wouldn't seem like it could be real.
It's pretty.
12-year-old Chris would be pretty stoked.
But even like January 2023, Chris wouldn't even believe it, right? Like,
no, not really.
It all happened kind of quickly, eh?
Being told that, like, yeah, it went from me being like, oh, I'm gonna like just go back to uni this year and finish that off. But then all of a sudden, oh no, you're gonna go over to the other side of the world to work on bikes with some pretty cool dudes that are doing quite well. Very, very, very fast guys. It's pretty cool.
So sick. Might start wrapping things up a little bit, but what was the toughest thing about being on the World Cup and being a mechanic in your first year?
Difficult question. Hard for me to answer because I do enjoy it so much.
That's why I asked.
Yeah. Toughest thing I'm going to say is making sure that like Dan or Keelan or whoever they'll come down and they'll be like, oh, like my bike feels like this, like it feels like suspension or something is like just getting like bounced around, and it's just that's the point where your knowledge and like how you can judge situation or not a situation, judge how the bike is acting and know how everything all works and being able to give them the right advice. Be like, oh yeah, like you need to open up your high speed compression, or maybe it's like to do with wheel, like spoke tension, like that sort of thing. Like just fixing a bike and making it all work is like you got time to do that, and it's a bit more straightforward. Whereas when they come down looking for advice on how to make the bike feel better, that's the point where it's like, all right, like this is why they pay you the big bucks sort of thing. And yeah, you just got to have that knowledge and be able to analyze what the rider's saying into like what the bike's doing and know how to change it so that it feels better for them.
That's why
something that'll actually make the bike faster. Yeah.
That's why I don't envy Geordie Cortez and that crew's job. Like, that would be so hard to understand what
like,
a rider means.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to like translate what they're actually saying into like what the bike's actually doing. And then that's like the first half of the equation is figuring out what it's actually doing. And then the other half is figuring out what you need to change to make the bike quicker and smoother and faster.
Are you going to be on the team next year, or do you know what's kind of happening next year for yourself?
Again, I've got the same difficult decision. Do I finish off uni or do I go back over for another season? Although if I do go back over, I might be with the downhill team. I did a few races at the end of the season with them.
Yep.
And they really liked me as well. And I think I almost like the downhill sort of racing side of things. It's just a bit more prestigious and like there's a bit more mechanic sort of input into the actual like outcome of the race, because there's a lot more. Rider comes down after every practice lap and they're like, oh, I feel like we could tweak this, or like feels like that. The downhill stuff is a bit more involved for the mechanic. And I've done a couple races with them, working for Lou. She is pretty keen for next year as well, and so is the team. So that might be on the cards if I want it, which is a pretty cool opportunity to have.
That's sick. What what's the differences you notice between like Louise in a downhill scenario and Dan in his enduro? Like, what are the differences they're looking for on their bike? Did you notice anything, or was there something you were doing more in downhill than you were in enduro?
Yeah, the enduro guys are definitely a bit easier to work with, because with their bike setup or like just working on like tire pressure or like brakes, just making like how good you have to make it feel. Like they're going out for the whole day, so it's a lot more lenient for you're not dialing in the bike to work exactly perfectly for like a 3-minute run. Like the bike's got to work good for a whole day, as opposed to work like bloody amazing for like 3 minutes. So like I still kind of ended up going really in deep with the enduro stuff just because that's what I love doing. But like with the downhill stuff, like you dig into like hub bearings, like you pull them all, like pull the bearings out, clean them out, and like the stock grease out. You just run like really light, sort of quick grease, and like only run the outer sort of seals on the hubs, not the inner seals on the bearings. Just to like get every little bit of speed out of the bike, or like working in suspension, like just trying to make it as smooth as possible.
You're just trying everything to get every millisecond out of that bike, eh?
Yeah. Whereas enduro guys, like I just want it to feel good and reliable. Like, they're still like top riders. Like they're still pretty fussy, but I think it's also you don't see them like they go out and practice for half a day. Well, I guess I was out there with them, but there's with the downhill coming back after almost every practice lap. There's just always something that's going on. Like half the time, it might just be in the rider's head, but there's always something going on where you just get to tweak it constantly, tweak the bike, and yeah, which definitely makes it little bit harder, but I love that sort of stuff. So I'm more involved, more interesting as well.
What was did Louise have any kind of tweaks or anything that were interesting to you? Or
she loves her brakes to be super duper bitey. So
yeah,
I had to just like make sure I got like fresh pads, fresh rotors, like maybe not as often as I could, but we had like a couple team e-bikes. So I'd be like, she'd be out practicing, or like even when she wasn't practicing, I'd chuck fresh rotors and pads on the e-bike and bed them in, just make them super bitey. I got a few little special procedures to make it as perfect as possible. Yeah, so I'd be like riding around an e-bike, bedding in the pads, and then I'd swap the pads from the pads and rotors from the e-bike onto her bike, onto her spare wheels, that sort of thing.
that's wild.
Yeah.
Did she notice when you didn't do it right? Or was it perfect every time?
It wasn't perfect every time, but I got pretty good at it by the end of the season. So
that's sick.
there's a couple of times I just need to pull them a little bit harder than I want to. Or yeah.
That's
That
so
was one
sick.
thing that she loved was just brakes that was like to any other person, like you'd tap them like gently and feel like he was trying to throw you over the bars. But
Was is she close to the bar person or far from the bar person for bite point and stuff?
pretty close to the bar.
Yeah.
So you want like a real quick bite point. I like it that way. I reckon that's good. I feel like you get less on pump. It's a little top tip from Chris is run your levers as close to your bar. And your hand, your braking finger doesn't have to be as open, and you get less arm pump.
100%. All day, every day.
Yeah.
If you ever get the chance,
there's enough.
Yeah, if you ever get the chance, feel Fearon's brakes, and it's scary. Like, you think you're about to just press the bars with them. They are so close. It's scary.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to talk about this, but those new SRAM brakes, they are powerful. They'll throw you over the bars.
That's got to be cut.
Yeah.
I've already heard that, but yeah.
Yeah.
There are no new SRAM brakes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know, like, Troy hasn't been running them here in Adelaide because they would literally just throw him over the bars here. There's nowhere here that he could possibly ever use them. They're just ridiculous.
Yeah. Some people literally didn't like them because they were too powerful.
Because they're just bigger.
Braking or just locking up.
Yeah. They seem ridiculous. Is it hard working on? So you've got a couple of personal sponsors or people that help you out, like Magura and stuff like that. Is it hard being or riding Magura brakes, but then working on SRAM stuff?
No, not at all. Because I've 90% of the mountain bikes out there have got SRAM brakes on them. So I worked a lot with SRAM brakes in the past. So yeah, I'd be just as confident.
Yeah.
If not more confident, actually, working on SRAM brakes as opposed to Magura brakes, really.
I'm the same, eh? I love Magura brakes. They're the best I've ridden, but I'd much prefer working on SRAM. But.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I love both. I got to say that, but I love both. But yeah, there's just more SRAM brakes out there, so you end up working on them more, and you just get it all figured out.
Did you have any type of reality check or call when you came back into the shop and were working on people's bikes again?
Yeah, it was like someone bringing like some rusty old hybrid, and you're like, oh, like I just don't want to like working on cheap bikes is so much harder than working on nice bikes.
Yep.
It's just hard to make everything work nice, and like no matter how much effort you put in, sometimes it still doesn't work as good as the nice stuff, funnily enough.
But you want it to work as good as what Dan's bike or someone else's bike would work. So you're spending more time on it?
I tried to sometimes, but that's the other thing is working in a bike shop, like kind of, you don't have time limits, so to say, but like you got jobs to do like throughout the day, or you got the jobs to do for the day, so you got to get through everything. How many bikes I get through, but depends on how big the services are. But going from that to going to just working on like one or two bikes and getting all day just to make them perfect, like no restrictions, like just it satisfies a little bit of mechanical happiness in my brain. Everything's perfect.
It's a bit different when you're working on like a 7-speed freewheel shifting bike with no derailleur hanger, and yeah.
Or even when like people bring in nice bikes into the shop, and you're like, oh, like I love to like just like do all your suspension, like make everything like feel perfect and beautiful. But if you do that, you've got to charge them lots of money, and people don't always want to charge lots of money, so you can't really do that, even if you want to.
Only pros have to service suspension, mate. It's the consumers don't need it.
Well, there's even like little tips and little tricks and stuff that you can do to like make a race bike feel just extra nice, whether it's suspension or like with your wheels or brakes and stuff. That you can do these little tricks, but only good for, I don't know, maybe 10 hours of riding. So you can't do that to someone who's going to bring their bike in only every few months, every 6 months or so.
Yeah, if you if you're running just one seal in your bearings, it's not going to last very long if you're riding every weekend.
Yeah. It doesn't quite work that way, unfortunately.
We might start wrapping things up.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for anyone that wants to get into wrenching or maybe work on a World Cup team? Like, let's say you had to go back and tell 12-year-old Chris what to do to get where you are. What would you kind of say?
Definitely like being on the racing scene yourself, going to make a big difference. Just like, because it is a massive part of it is who you know. So if you're out there making a name for yourself, just riding and racing, like you don't necessarily have to be doing well. It helps if you are sometimes, but you don't have to. Just like getting to know people, just talking, big step. But then you do still have to have the skills to back it up. So the amount of time I've spent just like messing around with my own bike or working in the shop, just even just like I keep thinking back to like one of the cool things I feel like I have, and I notice it a lot working in the shop in Sydney, is just the massive amounts of like tiny little bits of seemingly useless information that I might have picked up years ago looking at like random review or on some forum on the internet. I'm like, oh, I can pick up that little bit of information and use that in some way. I don't know if that's really useful advice, but just of what you do and
100%. Yeah.
Live and breathe it. Effective.
It's like, when you're so deep into it and you're starting to fix things that were around when you were 6 or 7, but you know it because you went in and looked at all the random history of the bike and stuff. That's, I don't know. I always found that kind of cool.
Yeah.
Is there anything anything you would have done differently this year or up to now? Do you have any regrets or anything like that?
Not really. It's all been that good. I don't think I'd change a thing.
Sick. And last one seems to be the hardest one for a few people, but let's say you are lacking a bit of motivation, or you're pretty down, or you don't want to get back to work, which doesn't seem like it's a thing for you. But is there anything you kind of listen to music wise, or anything you do to kind of get motivated and get to work, or get to what you want to do?
Yeah, I do like listening to music a lot. You like a few artists and stuff that I quite like, and when I get like down and stuff, like, doesn't happen too often, I guess, but yeah, when you're not feeling great, and like sad for whatever reason, or like not motivated, whatever you want to call it, I do listen to like, seems weird like saying it out loud, but like I'll listen to like kind of sad songs. I don't know if it's like breakup songs or something like that.
Yep.
There's actually an American guy called Whit Lowry. I love his music, but like it's all like kind of pretty sad and like painful music, but I feel like I can listen to that and it just like, I feel like I can put all my sad like missiles, whatever, into that, and like it's kind of a way of expressing it, and then get to it, and then you keep going, just like all the way.
Well, that's why they call them breakup songs. It's because people listen to them when they break up. Like it's just it is a way for you to kind of understand what's happening.
Get those feelings out, get through them, and then back to being stoked again.
Wait, how do you spell that artist name?
Witt, W-I-T-T.
Oh yeah.
Lowry, L-O-W-R-E-Y. I think it is.
Sick. I'll have a listen. I'll get onto it.
Yeah.
Sick, man.
Like real emotional stuff.
Yeah, rad. It's been sick chatting to you, man. It was pretty cool to watch you.
Thanks for having me.
Like I think the first time I met you or saw you was in Medina 2021, first national rounds, and you were camping out the back of the Mouse House.
Yeah,
and,
I think of that time very fondly. That was good.
That was a sick weekend. And to see you going from sleeping in the tent with your dog down at Nationals, and now you're traveling the world as a mechanic. It's sick to see, man. It's really, really cool.
Yeah.
So, I can't wait to see what you do next year. And thanks so much for coming on, man.
Man.
There you go, guys. I hope you enjoyed that potty. It was real cool to hear from Chris and how his season went, and he kind of got that random start in the team. Anyway, thanks again to our sponsors, Trek Bikes, Frank to Mountain Bike Apparel, Shred Bike Care, Fist Handwear, Taylor Trails, Lead Out Sports, Dirt Surfer, Cuptown Caps, and Oakley, Australia. If you guys want to support the podcast, support those guys. If you don't want to throw any coin around during these tough times, then tell your mum, tell your nana, tell your dog, tell whoever, share the podcast around, and rate and review it on all your podcast apps. So that's that one. Got some rad ones lined up to finish off the year. So until the next one, go and have a bunch of fun.